Thank you, councillors, members of senior staff, members of the press. Warm welcome to you, and I declare open the August meeting of Temora Shire Council. And I thank you so much for being in the chamber. Particular welcome back to Councillor Irvine, has been away on leave. Welcome back to the chamber to Councillor Irvine, also to the General Manager. Welcome back, and technically councillors, he's still on leave, the General Manager, so he's really technically an observer this evening because he's still on leave. I think returns back to work next Tuesday, but we are pleased to see you here, Mr. General Manager. And in saying that, we also, every one of us in the chamber would like to extend our warm thanks to the Acting General Manager, the Director of Environmental, I beg your pardon, the Director of Administration and Finance, Mrs. Elizabeth Smith. To you, Madam Director, we thank you so much for stepping up. You've carried out your role in a very diligent, dedicated and fair dinkum manner, and your communication is exceptional, and Council warmly praise you and thank you for your efforts. Now, let's proceed to now our opening prayer, and if you can all please bow your head in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so very much that we're here gathered together to carry out the good works that we strive to do for our cherished Temora Shire community. Please bless over us and our families, our staff and every citizen of Temora Shire, and let them know that each one is just as important as the next. And Lord, please give us the strength and the grace to carry out the business of our meeting that is before us, and we'll continue to work hard for our community's sake, and we do it in your name. Amen. Thank you. Councillors, do we have any apologies, please? I think the Director of Environmental Services, and in his chair we welcome the Town Planner. Thank you for stepping up this evening. Someone move that the apology is accepted, please. Councillor McLaren, Councillor Oliver moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, a motion please to confirm the ordinary meeting of Temora Shire Council held on the 21st of July 2022. As a motion that they be received as true and correct, please. Councillor Bushell, thank you. Councillor Good, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Any matters arising, Madam Acting General Manager?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillors, let's go to our business paper, the white pages on page 11. The minutes, bless you, the minutes of the Temora Shire Council's Traffic Committee, and I'm the chairman of that committee. Is someone prepared to move that that report is received, please? Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Councillor Reinhold moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillors, there were several matters discussed there, and it's open for discussion, the report and its recommendations. Councillor McLaren.
I was just going to declare a pecuniary interest in item 19.3 later in the business papers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Flagging that declaration of interest. Thanks, Councillor McLaren. Councillor Oliver, the Traffic Committee report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Was talk about it at our traffic meeting about the wet weather and how it's impacting on our roads, and I brought up about the Google Maps situation and how that extra traffic, when they give an alternate route, really impacts on our roads. And the main one that's impacted mostly is the Morangel Road, and I drive that road quite often, well, twice a day, in fact. And I often see Queensland cars heading south and Victorian cars heading north. And they look up the route, and there's always an alternate route. And it's being used more and more nowadays with the price of fuel and all that sort of stuff. I know it's not a state-funded road. We have to find the funds to fix that road ourselves. But there's, you know, with the increased traffic, it's a cost. I mean, that road's really getting smashed to pieces, as well as all the other roads, of course. But I'm just wondering whether we can do something about it. I'm just not sure what we can do. I know the director said that Google Maps do what Google Maps want, but I don't know whether our MPs are aware of the impact it's having on our roads. So, I don't know, I just thought I'd bring it back up again for discussion, so thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Perhaps if the engineers are happy, you might like to take that on notice, if you don't mind, and come back to Council with a report in due course in relation to that particular proposal and suggestion, and allow Council to consider that in due course. Thank you. Thank you. Councillors, anything further in the Traffic Committee report and its recommendations? You'll notice, Councillors, the hedges that the committee did consider, there was a request in relation to the height of the hedges, and you'll see there is a recommendation there that that the hedge heights be kept to below the 750mm, which would then be consistent across the board if that recommendation was to be adopted. So, councillors, the report is there and its recommendations. Is someone prepared to move to that effect, or is there an alternate, please? Thank you. Councillor Oliver?
I'll move that way, Mr Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. You move the report and its recommendations be adopted. Thank you. Seconder for the motion, the Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Just in further discussion, I do thank those councillors who are able to attend those meetings, even if they're not members of the committee. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Irvine, attended. I think it is good, and I just encourage, if any other councillor is free, the Traffic Committee only meet once a quarter, but it is a good committee, and getting to know the new RMS officer or manager that's in charge of us, Mrs. Kim Schultz. Very impressive individual so far. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Let's go to councillors over to page 30, the Assets and Operations Committee report. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, is the chairman.
I'll move that the report we received.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor. I just declared a pecuniary interest in that matter, in something in the confidential. So I presume I need to leave the room now because we're talking about the report in general.
So you're declaring an interest in relation to a matter that's in
the confidential.
No, well, you'll do that at the time. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Good. The Deputy Mayor.
I'll move the report we received.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Seconder for the motion. Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. The Deputy Mayor.
The report's basically as written. I think, I guess there's item 4.1 is around for fixing country roads. As the committee come up with priorities for those that funding. Hope everyone's happy with that.
Thank you. Councillors, any comments in relation to the report and its recommendations? If not, is someone prepared to move the Assets and Operations Committee report and its recommendations, please? Thank you, Councillor McLaren. The Deputy Mayor moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, let's proceed over to page 55, the Economic Development Visitations Committee report, and Councillor McLaren is the chairman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the report be received.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren has moved that the report is received. Is there a seconder for the motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Judd. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The report is as written, although I would like to highlight the very considered and methodical way the museum manager is going about the ambulance museum development. It seems to be ticking all the boxes, going through all the consultation process, and I think at the end of the day it's going to be a very well thought out product in the end. So I just thought he's doing a great job there. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLaren. I endorse those remarks, and I see nods around the chamber as well. So thank you. Councillors, is there any other comment or question in relation to the Economic Development Visitations Committee report? If not, is someone prepared to move the report and its recommendations, please? Thank you. Councillor Judd, the Deputy Mayor, moved and seconded. Further discussion? If no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very, very much. Councillors, over to page 68. We have now the delegates' reports. Do we have delegates' reports, please? I go to the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair.
Okay.
Councillor Sinclair.
A couple of reports, Australia Day Committee, AGM. Unfortunately, I had COVID at the time, so I couldn't be there, but
You want some?
I've taken as the chair of the committee, along with there's deputy chair, Councillor Oliver is the treasurer, and Beth Furman is the secretary. So everything's in hand for another Australia Day next year. Let's look forward to it, and hopefully it can be run as a normal event. The other one I had, the local government week, which also I didn't get to attend, but went off very well, especially the Merrill Morning Tea. There was quite a few people there, and it was basically to look to thank the volunteer organisations and so forth who help make this community tick. As you know, without them, it would be a different place, I think. So very important to keep those people there on our side and everything. So it was just all part of that. So thanks to Shantaine, Economic Manager Officer, for the work she did. She was the main one behind it all. Had it all very well laid out. It was unbelievable. Had everything down to the last second really organised, and she did an excellent job. Thanks for that. Thanks,
Mr Deputy Mayor. Let's now go to Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I attended the Sister City Committee. The Sister City Committee is in relation to the sister cities that we have, Uzumaki in Japan and Randwick in Sydney. There was a 30-year anniversary from the sister city when we first started the agreement with Uzumaki, but there was things planned to celebrate that, but then that was during COVID. So last year, Council put in the budget $2,600 for a gift for Uzumaki. So we're planning something for the 35th anniversary, and it's something that we're looking at trying to promote the sister city agreements that we have amongst the community. It used to be quite popular, and there was a Japanese course at the high school, which they now have Korean. It's something that we look to promote so we can tell the community the benefits of a sister city relationship. That's about it.
That's great. Thanks, Councillor Good. And Council also congratulates you on your election as the chairman of that committee, taking over from former Mayor Mr Peter Spears, who's held that role the last the last few years, and yeah, we do commend you on that role. Thank you. Further delegates' reports. Council, just to update you that we have a REROC board meeting on the 26th of August in Wagga Wagga next Friday, so Friday week. Our guest speaker will be the Federal Local Government Minister, the Honourable Christy McBain. And some of you may recall that the Minister was the Mayor of Bega Valley, and certainly very active in local government. We're so pleased he's accepted our invitation to catch up. We also, as an executive of REROC, met with the New South Wales Shadow Minister for Local Government and Veterans Affairs, Mr Greg Warren, and we met with him on Friday. He's very is certainly very keen to listen to not just his member for Campbelltown, but he's making a genuine effort to reach out to rural and regional communities, and he's to be commended for that, that's for sure. And particularly interested in his views in relation to regional collaboration, and it was interesting to hear his views that he's tossing around in terms of trying to frame his policy position in relation to that space, whether it's JOs or otherwise, and I was quite pleased to hear that at this stage he seems to be thinking that, well, each council is best placed to know what suits them in terms of regional collaboration, and whether that's a ROC as they are in Sydney, or a JO or an alliance as there is up north of the state. So I think it was a very worthwhile session, and we thank Mr Warren deeply for his time. So that is about all that I had for you, other than the country mayors meeting, of course, that we went to, the acting general manager and I, very, very well attended, and the current chairman, Mayor Ken Keith of Parkes Shire, has indicated that he's standing down, which is a shame, to be frank, because he's been outstanding chairman, and he is the one, with his leadership, together with the executive and members, but his leadership brought about the memorandum of understanding with Local Government New South Wales for country mayors to take the lead on rural and regional issues in the state. So he can be very, very proud of that. So that's all I had, councillors. Nothing further? If not, let's go over to page 69, the Mayor's Report 9.1 for the month of July. And there's a recommendation, Council, on page 72, that the Mayor's Report be noted. Thank you, Councillor Judd. Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Over to page 73, a motion to receive our staff reports, please. Councillor Bushell, Councillor Good. Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare that motion carried. Thank you very, very much. I go to page 74, the General Manager's Report 11.1, the calendar of events. I'm deferring to the Acting General Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the calendar of events is as written. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Acting General Manager. Comments or questions, councillors? If not, there's a recommendation on page 74 that we note the report. The Deputy Mayor, thank you. Moved, seconded, please. Councillor Good, thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Over to page 75, 11.2, the seals for August. The Acting General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So there's actually two documents listed there, but I believe we should withdraw one of them, being the first one, the Accommodation Temora Proprietary Limited. There's been some developments in that space in the last week or so. So we'll just leave the one in for Hucker Proprietary Limited, which is the lease of the medical complex. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And in relation to the Jenny Road one, I understand that the Acting Director of Environmental Services will give Council an update in closed session in relation to that due to the personnel, personal circumstances. So thank you very much. Councillor, so ultimately on page 75, you're considering to affix the seal to the lease of Hucker Proprietary Limited, 296 to 298 Hoskins Street, which of course is a medical complex. Councillor Oliver, the Deputy Mayor, moved and seconded that we adopt the recommendation, that is that Council seal is affixed to the above document. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, let's go over to page 76, 11.3, the Community Strategic Plan for 2021-2022, the Acting General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the report on the Community Strategic Plan is set out as required. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, councillors, of the 2021-2022 Community Strategic Plan? I go to Councillor Irvine.
There's a note there in encourage the provision of education opportunities.
So what page, sorry, Councillor Irvine, please?
82.
Thank you. 82.
Investigate the potential for council designation as a registered training organisation. In what capacity would that be? I noticed in the actions that there's been no action taken. I was just wondering what capacity council would be entering that space, or what was the consideration in that?
Thanks very much, Councillor Irvine. I will go to the General Manager.
It was an issue that was under consideration some time ago, Councillor Irvine, for the youth space to have registered training courses so that they have a certificate at the end of it. So there was agreed at the time to investigate it, but it's proven to be quite a difficult thing to do, for the small amount of benefit we'd get out of it. But that was the basis of it.
Thank you. Councillor Irvine.
Well, just to follow up, I took advantage of the training that was offered at council for the forklift licence training that Kerry Wallace was doing at the time, and I found it really good to be able to access that in town. There probably is a need, but then you don't want to create a situation where you've got overlap and you've got three people doing it. So if there are others who are in the space, I think council should stay out, but I've found a lot of benefit in being able to access it locally.
Thanks, Councillor Irvine. I don't think anyone in the chamber would disagree that if that space is being covered in the community, we wouldn't go down that track. But thank you very much for that. Councillor, if there's no further discussion on the CSP, is someone prepared to move the recommendation, page 76, that the 2021-2022 Community Strategic Plan be noted? Thank you. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor McLaren, thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very, very much. Councillors, let's go over to page 140. 12 points. Nothing, sorry, before I do that, nothing of an urgent late nature, Madam Acting General Manager?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Now we go to the Engineering Services Department. It's great to have our Engineering Assets Manager and our Engineering Works Manager in the chamber. And 12.1 heavy haulage trucks issue, the engineering assets manager, Mr Fisher.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, council received this correspondence and the report is as written, looking for some direction.
Thank you. Councillors, you have the correspondence there for you to consider. Does council have any comments or direction in how they'd like to handle the matter? The Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, the three streets they've named, as far as Ashford Street goes, well, there's, we just don't have any choice there for trucks accessing GrainCorp site. As for the other two, well, I don't know, but I wouldn't have thought there'd be huge, truck numbers there. There shouldn't be too many at all, really, I thought, but yeah, as far as Ashford Street goes, there's not much we can do about that. It's not ideal. I mean, it's noted here that there's two cars not able to pass in one, place. That probably is Ashford Street, but without taking the front yards off 4 or 5 houses, there's not much else can do about it. There's a railway line on the other side.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. And it is appropriate the engineers have brought it to council to consider, particularly when they're suggesting that two cars are not able to pass each other and claiming that it is dangerous. Does the I'll go to Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just had a question for the manager. Do we have any counters available to monitor that over a period to sort of see what sort of vehicles and the frequency?
Thank you. The engineering assets manager.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. We can stick counters there. As Councillor Sinclair mentioned, both Ashford Street and Austral Street are currently, I guess, our main access to GrainCorp for the larger vehicles. And Camp Street, to a certain extent, is also, there's a GrainCorp facility on Camp Street, and I think that's what causes some of the issue. There's some rotation between their site on Camp Street and their site on the old Cootamundra Road. And the northern section of Camp Street actually has been a B-double route for some time. I've actually spoken to GrainCorp just about sticking to the state road, just to try and sort of ease these concerns. But every 12 months it seems to pop up. So.
Thank you. So, Councillor McLaren, would you like to move to the direction that you were
I'd be happy
referring
to move that we place a traffic count on the specific roads mentioned in the letter to monitor it over 6 months, maybe.
Thanks, Councillor McLaren. Just to help finalise and frame that motion, 6 months. Do you think that's appropriate, or do you think the 3 months over Harvard? What's your advice, please?
Ideally, if we can do it, we'll do it over 12. We might just have to see where our other counters are in place, because we generally like to try and catch 12 months of data before we move them. Happy to do that. I sort of see Ashford and Austral is absolutely critical at the moment. I can't see that we can change it. Camp Street, whilst it's not ideal, a lot of these trucks are general access trucks, less than 19 metres, that can go on any town street, bar load limit in a lot of residential streets. You're going to get this from time to time. It just so happens that there's a couple of key destinations nearby.
Thank you. So, Councillor McLaren, you're happy to move the motion that council place counters on the roads, namely Camp Street, Austral and Astleford Street, for a period of 12 months, and further that a report be furnished to council with the results.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren has moved that way. Councillor Bushell, you seconding the motion? Thank you. Councillor Bushell seconded the motion. I go to Councillor Bushell.
I just would like to comment that these roads that they've highlighted also are along a railway line. So, there's we are a rural council. Even in the city, they still have trucks go down small roads, small streets. So it's the mode of transport that people opt for, and I don't think that as a council we can prevent it. And I don't know how you can say that they can't go down there if they're legally right to. So, but yeah, the traffic count would be ideal, but as what our Director of Engineering said, I think it would only be warranted after those counters that are nominated through our, what's the word I'm looking for? Our works program, that they become after.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bushell, and you're quite right, and I understand that that was assumed by council if this resolution was to pass, that would be the case. Further discussion on the motion, I go to Councillor Judd.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I tend to agree with the manager that with both Austell Street and Askell Street, we've got no really choice about the traffic going down there, heavy trucks, and I think probably the counters probably should only probably put on Camp Street, really. But, so.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Judd. Well, I'll go back to the mover and the seconder, Councillor McLaren and Councillor Bushell. Councillor McLaren, do you want to tweak it, or do you want to leave it as is?
I think if we get the information from that, we can prioritise them in our roads maintenance and capital works program.
Yeah.
But without that knowledge, we're not quite sure where it fits in.
No, that's a good point. Thank you. Happy with that? Yeah, thank you very much. Well, councillors, if there's no further discussion... Oh, sorry, Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it would be beneficial to get the counter for all three roads, particularly because we have been discussing alternative routes to go to these particular areas. I think that would just bolster our any submission we should make.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Thank you, Councillor Good. Go now to the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just a bit further on Camp Street, just think about it, like it gets filled from basically overflow from GrainCorp these days during harvest, and most of the trucks are weighed at GrainCorp and then travel into the solar complex on Camp Street and be unloaded, and then when that grain gets moved out, I think a lot of it actually gets carted from there back out to GrainCorp. So, yeah, certainly the southern end of Camp Street would get quite a bit of traffic. But in saying that, before GrainCorp decided on the Old Coora Road was opened up, all the grain went to them. And I know I started my truck driving days there in lineups that went back right around to the Burley Griffin Way and so forth. You know, so it's always been trucks on Camp Street.
That was way back in the olden days,
It
Mr
was,
Deputy.
yeah, just after the horse and saltwater.
Thank you. Glad I'm sitting up here. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I agree with the Deputy. These are traditional delivery routes for the farmers to deliver their grain, have been since 1918 when the silos were first built, and then the sub-terminal come along not long after. So, I mean, these have been there for a lot longer than some of these residents have been in this street. So I think that's when you buy a house or build a house on a freight corridor, you've got to expect a little bit of noise, just like you get if you're built beside an airport. So it is what it is. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Councillors, we've had good discussion on the motion that's before us. Councillor McLaren, Councillor Bushell have moved that council place traffic counters on Ashleford, Camp and Austral streets for 12 months, and further that a report be furnished to council with the results. So if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Nothing of an urgent late nature from our engineering managers? No, thank you. Happy? Thank you very much. And again, Council, I know we said it on committee day, but we say it again in our formal meeting, Temora Shire Council. We thank our works, engineering works manager and the assets manager and all of our outdoor staff for the manner in which they handled the recent flooding events. Council were deeply grateful for each and every one of them stepping up to help serve our Shire community and those that were travelling through. So we thank you again and to all involved. Let's. Yes. Councillor Bush will see. That's a brownie point for her. I'll mark that down. Councillors, nothing of urgent late nature? No. Let's go to page 142, the Environmental Services Department report, 13.1, Stronger Country Communities, and we go to the Acting Director, the Town Planner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this report is to advise Council that Stronger Country Communities Fund Round 5 has now opened for applications from the New South Wales Government. So there's some information there about eligibility of various projects, and there's a recommendation there that councillors hold a workshop. The proposed date is Friday the 2nd of September, where councillors could consider a number of projects and make a recommendation there to place those potential projects on a public exhibition process before we need to submit the grant application on the 23rd of September. So there is approximately $900,000 that's been allocated to Temora Shire, and then there's an additional approximately $400,000 has been allocated to the community. So that would be separate funding for community groups to apply directly under this round. So for councillors' decision.
Thank you, Madam Acting Director. Councillors, there's a recommendation for you to consider on page 144. It is great news. Yet another workshop to determine how we spend a significant sum of money. Councillors, a recommendation there for you to consider on 144. Someone prepared to move that, please, or is there an alternate? Councillor Good? Thank you. Councillor Good's moving the recommendation. Second for the motion, please. Councillor Oliver, thank you. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? I go to Councillor Judd.
I still note though that whatever council decides, we're still going to back it up by getting a community survey to say that what we decide represents the community. That still bugs me. I think the state government doesn't trust local government at all.
Councillor Judd, I have to endorse your comments 100%. Many local government areas across the state had shared that same view and made those representations to the various New South Wales government departments, but unfortunately it's fallen on deaf ears, which is disappointing. It really is, because you wonder why we go through the process of our community strategic planning, which comes at a great deal of cost in terms of dollars and time. Anyway, it is what it is, and we will play nicely in the sandpit, but I'm sure that as part of any further communication that we'll make those views known again. So thank you, Councillor Judd. Moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Let's go over to page 145, 13.2, the draft Bradley Park upgrade concept plans, the Acting Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this report follows on from the presentation that councillors received in the public forum. So it is quite a tight time frame because we have been alerted that there is a potential for grant funding for construction of works in Bradley Park next month. So hence the tight time frame, proposing that public exhibition commence on Tuesday next week, and then council consider a report at the September council meeting regarding the outcomes of that community consultation. So for council's decision.
Thank you very, very much. I go now to Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with the recommendation, but I just wanted to add that whether we can put the information in the Temora Independent on Friday the 26th and Friday the 2nd of September about the Bradley Park upgrade, and maybe on our Facebook, just to make sure the community are well aware of it, because often if it's just on public exhibition in the foyer, it's not as accessible. So I'd really like to have a lot of discussion about it. Thank you.
Concentrated effort. Thanks, Councillor McLaren. The acting director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So yes, it is the intention that we will be sharing this information on Council's social media, and yes, we will be placing advertisement in the Friday newspaper as well as Tuesdays as well. So that Tuesday was selected to coincide with the paper coming out, but also if there was any last minute changes or additional information that councillors wanted to include prior to it going on public exhibition, we had time to add those things in before the final one goes to exhibition on the Tuesday.
Thank you. I go now to Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I remember some years ago we got a handwritten letter from some children. I think they lived in William Street. Those children are probably now adults, but at least their dream is, I think all they were asking for was a swing set or something like that. So they're going to get a little bit more bang for their buck this time, but at least it goes to show that their dreams will be realised.
Hopefully, Councillor Oliver, hopefully.
Thank you.
At least, thank you, Councillor. At least the plans, if they're adopted or tweaked, whatever council and the community decide, will be best place to put our best foot forward in terms of grant application funding. I now go to Councillor Irvine.
And this is just a question to Director of Engineering. Photo 2 in that paperwork for the park on page 151 shows a bike track, a pump track sealed. That'd be my preference as opposed to decomposed granite or something like that. I find it a little bit skatey, and I reckon she'd be pack your mercurochrome if you put a decomposed granite pump track out there.
You toughen them up.
Well,
Councillor.
yeah. And I don't know. And obviously, it's going to be more expensive, and it just depends on how it's done. But that'd be the only thing. I reckon the concept's really good. It is funny though, out in the bush, that we're building a park with rocks and creeks and trees and stuff, which just happens to be all around us. But that's by the by. The pump track though, I know I've got grandkids and they love them. There's a couple of companies doing modular ones. I think Coolum Shire Council have actually got one that they're rotating around between towns that they pack up and move through Ganmain and Ardlethan and Madong and places like that on a regular basis. And whenever it turns up, it gets an absolute flogging. So there's, I think it's Archie Play or someone like that. I can't remember the name, but they've got a modular one, and it's a hard surface with a grippy top. And I reckon that seems to be the way to go for those sort of things. But that's the only comments I'd like to make, other than there is a pronounced and distinct stormwater easement through there that they're talking about incorporating into some sort of a creek bed, which probably makes sense. And if it's all full of stones, you don't have the issue with a kid falling in and drowning, and the water can move through. But yeah, it looks pretty good.
Thank you very much, Councillor Irvine. Now, are Council happy if Councillor Irvine's comments are noted in relation to the seal of that pump? I've never actually heard of a pump track, but anyway. So Council happy to have that as part of the considerations? As an option, yeah. Okay, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Bushell.
I'd just like to move the recommendation. I think that we've all got the opportunity to submit. So I think, those suggestions that Councillor Irvine said, do it in the exhibition stage.
Part of that process.
I just want to know whether we can engage some youth a little bit more too with the exhibition and that process, like whether it can go to the schools for their newsletters, because, we as adults aren't going to be the ones on those bikes or scooters. So I think getting their attention to the fact would be better than the adults. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bushell. So you're saying that to amplify what's already suggested, I think that was to engage with preschool youngsters, but also the youth team. I think that was mentioned. So you're saying to enhance those options as well.
Well, they don't sort of pick up the newspaper to see that there's an advert in the classifieds. So they quite often see Class Dojo. That's an app that the kids use and the teachers quite often use to populate. There's other apps out there, but the kids quite often use those. So.
Thank you, Councillor Bush. It's very educational, I must admit. So the Acting Director of Environmental Services noted those comments. Thank you. Now, does the Engineering Assets Manager wish to say something?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Listen, only to say that I support the idea of a pump track. Anybody that's been around, they're extremely popular. I've been to a very good one, a new one at Mildura recently. There's one at Spring at Stock and Bingle. I'm not sure if anybody's seen that. It's an asphalt pump track. I have seen the modular ones. I don't really like them. There's one at Barmedman. End of the day, it'll probably just come back to cost, but I've got no doubt that something of a high standard will be an attraction for that area, and that's something that we sort of, we looked at possibly the Pines, maybe trying to formalise something there, but we ended up away from that because of the proximity to, it's bound by house boundaries, and it was something that we had in mind. To whether it's sealed or unsealed, I don't really have a preference other than the fact to say if you seal it and do a great job, it'll end up a good attraction. It's going to cost a lot of money.
If it's fully grant funded, although I know council would be required to maintain it. But anyway, at least council can consider those options after the public exhibition period. Thank you. So Councillor Bushell, you're prepared to move the recommendation. Thank you. That's on page 146. That for those listening, that 1, receive the draft Bradley Park upgrade concept plans. 2, provide initial comments to the consultants to be considered prior to the commencement of the public exhibition. 3, support the public exhibition of the plans to commence on the 23rd of August 2022. And finally, receive a further report about the outcome of the public exhibition at the September council meeting. Councillor Bushell's moved that way. Seconded, Councillor Good. Thank you. Moved and seconded. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Nothing of an urgent late nature from the Acting Director, please?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you very much. Let's go to page 152, the Director of Administration and Finance report. 14.1, stock take of stores and materials. The Director, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the stock take of stores and materials was done at the end of June, and this year we've got a $2,333 surplus. So that actually means that the guys have sort of taken out less than what they've recorded through the system. But to put it into perspective, the major difference is in relation to diesel. So there's a variation of 986 litres of diesel. So over the course of the year, we go through around about 125,000 litres of diesel. So that's sort of how it comes out. So when the fuel comes into our tankers, it's measured precisely by the fuel distributors. But when we issue it out, our measuring systems are not as accurate as the suppliers. So that's how we get little variations over time. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Director. Councillors, you've heard from the Director. There's a recommendation there for you to consider on page 152 that Council adjust the variation to the Works Depot sundry expenses stock adjustment account to the value of $2,333.86. Councillor Oliver, you're moving the recommendation. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, over to page 156, 14.2, November Council meeting. The Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a request for Council to consider moving the November Council meeting back 1 week to Thursday the 24th of November due to a clash with some meetings for the Country Mayors Association in Sydney. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you Madam Director. Councillors, as you can see in the report, that the country mayors have got their meeting date clashing because of the Australian Local Government Association National Roads Congress, which is in Tasmania. And of course, there's also JO chairman sessions and various ministerial meetings as well. So there's a recommendation there for council to consider. And again, we don't make it a habit of this at all, and I'm proud of that fact. However, this is an occasion where we feel that it is important that council consider the recommendation. Councillors, we're in your hands. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think we've nearly got to move it, haven't we? We're probably the more important of those other events, I guess. So as long as we advertise it to the public and make sure that they know what's going on, I think. But I'll move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Oliver. Is there a second? Councillor Reinhold. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is further discussion? Councillor Judd.
I think as long as we check with our fellow councillors that they haven't got commitments on that date and can't make it as well. So,
Yeah, thank you. Further discussion, Councillor Good.
Can I ask when the December meeting is?
Thank you, Councillor Good. The scheduled meeting for December is the 15th, so that's good timing, sort of.
3 weeks after this.
Which will be the last one for the year. So, councillors, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the recommendation, which is that the November council meeting be held on Thursday, the 24th of November. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. And thank you very much, councillors. Let's go to page 100 and nothing of an urgent late nature from the director.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Let's go to 157, the correspondence. 15.1, event application, the acting general manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I request to hold the country weekend rod run and use the town hall, and they're also asking council to consider waiving the fees.
Thanks very much. Council, just to remind you of the current policy that council has in relation to the town hall, that if council would like to donate back, that we can donate up to 50% of those fees, if that is the wish of council. For council's consideration, it's certainly traditionally been a very good event. It livens up the place. Councillors, I go to Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. This rod run weekend, my understanding is they don't do it to make money. They do it to raise money for charities and stuff, and it's always pretty well attended. And over the last couple of years, it's sort of been held back somewhat with COVID. So I wouldn't have a problem donating the entire amount, to be honest with you. So anyway, I'll let others talk on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. So just if the acting general manager might just refresh our memories. In relation to the Memorial Town Hall, we have a current position where we can donate up to 50% of the fees back to the relevant appropriate organisation.
That's correct. So that was added into the revenue policy 2 years ago, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. Councillors, we're in your hands in relation to this. The Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I guess the thing here, when you read their letter, they're saying that they're raising money for Can Assist. So it's a roundabout way that council is donating money to Can Assist. So it's something you've got to keep in, in mind. I really think they should be paying away a bit. But,
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. Well, that's why I think that the policy is there. I was actually surprised that they didn't go to one of our clubs or something. I think it's great that, want to use our beautiful Memorial Town Hall, but just in terms of costings, etc. I go to the Phantom General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Our policy does say that it's half a donation, but there is nothing to stop council from making a cash donation to an organisation who's holding an event as well, on top of that. So you can, by, I guess, stealth, but you can still make that full payment if you wish to within the current policy.
Thank you. But again, Mr General Manager, I'd remind Council of the financial position as well that Temora Shire Council's in. Anyway, I go to the Deputy Mayor.
yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll move that council donate up to donate 50% of the what do you call it, costs back to the Country Weekend Rod Fund.
Thank you. So the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, has moved that way. Second, Councillor Reinhold, that Council donate 50% of the fees in relation to the hire of the Temora Memorial Town Hall. Councillor Reinhold has seconded the motion. Is there further discussion? I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to...
Oh, sorry.
No, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Irvine.
Their use of the town hall seems to be really, really limited. They say they want to use the kitchen and the cool room from Thursday the 29th through to Monday the 3rd, and the town hall main space for breakfast on Sunday and for the presentation night on the Sunday night. And they've sort of asked for 3 days for the entire facility. I don't know, is there some way that the costings that have been considered here can be broken down so that they're not paying $3.95 a day for the whole hall when they don't really... I don't know, maybe it's some way to get the cost down in relation to them. They don't seem to be... It's not like they're just putting 150 people through the hall 3 days in a row. That's my only note on it.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. Well, look, I'm not sure, because that would sort of, in my view, open a bit of a can of worms, but again, I don't know. I'll go to Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This event, when it was done in the past, has been a particularly good event for Temora. Particularly they have the nighttime rod run down the main street, and the amount of people down the street at that time, it's incredible sometimes how many people are there, and then they tend to go out and either the hotels or the tea or something, or so it does encourage people to spend money in town, which I think is a good thing. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Irvine. I think I'd like to see council go back to them and discuss exactly what they need, because it's something that is going to be expensive for them anyway, particularly with the way prices are for fuel at the moment. It's something that they're not raising money for themselves. It's for a good cause, and I'd like to see us support them as much as we could. And I think if we could reduce the cost, I think that would be beneficial for them.
Well, thank you, Councillor Good. Well, perhaps whether the mover and seconder of the actual motion that's currently before us. Council donates 50% of the fees back to the Regency Rooms as a cost in relation to the hiring of the Temora Memorial Town Hall, and further, with the view of looking to help reduce the higher fee costs associated with the hall. So the mover and second are happy to include that? Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Further discussion, Councillor Bushell.
So thank you, Mr Mayor. Just through the director, so that's of finance. So that would be $1,077.50 total, would it be?
What's that, sorry?
So we're waiving the street banner small event hire and then 50% of the town hall. So that's $1,077.50.
Thank you, Councillor Bushell. So in relation to, yes, so we need to
Clarify the money.
address the issue of the street. We've certainly tackled the issue of the Memorial Town Hall fees, but we need to consider the street banner and the small event application fee. The Deputy Mayor.
I was sort of counting them all in actually myself, like as far as the 50% goes. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay, so therefore that the motion that council donates 50% of the fees back, right? So that's all the fees that are listed there, yes. And further, council look to reduce the high fees associated with the Temora Memorial Town Hall. Does that capture the motion of what the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Reinhold would like to put? Hang on. So can I ask Councillor Oliver just to, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Reinhold.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, no, I think our policy is 50% of the town hall. I think our street banner and the application fee, I'm happy to waive those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go back to the mover. Okay, so can we please just amend this? We're going to get there. That council donate the street banner and the application fee, and of course the 50% of the fees in relation to the hire of the Memorial Town Hall. And of course the further to reduce the higher fees associated with hiring that last bit we've got to tidy up. And while we're tidying up the last bit after and further, I'm going to go to Councillor Oliver, who's been patient. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think what Councillor Irvine was referring to was the actual days that they're going to be using it. I think that, as Councillor Irvine said, they're not going to be running people in and out for the 3 days because they've got other events and activities planned. So they may well only want it for the presentation evening. I'm not too sure.
Well,
so I think we've got to actually find out what they really want to use it for and how many days.
Yeah, well, that I think. Thank you, Councillor. Well, I think that all encompasses in relation to looking at ways to reduce the higher fees. I think that captures that nicely. Okay, how have we tidied up and further? Council look to reduce the higher fees associated with the hiring of the Temora Memorial Town Hall. Thank you. So the mover and second are happy? Thank you. There's no further discussion.
You should say for this event, but you're not trying to reduce the fees forever.
For this, council look to reduce the higher fees hiring for...
Yeah, this application, yeah, you're not
Yeah.
trying to change your fees forever.
Yeah. Thank you. Moved and seconded. We're happy. I'm going to put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you and well done. Let's go over to page 159, 15.2, the Temora Trotting Club. The Acting General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So a request for sponsorship for the Hot to Trot Carnival. Just note that council has provided this level of sponsorship in the past.
Thank you very much. Councillors, a great event like a Greyhound Racing Club, very, very strong clubs. Councillor Reinhold.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I move that we
Donate
donate.
the 550.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. Councillor Reinhold's moved that council purchase a Gold Club package sponsorship deal for Temora Trotting Club for their Hot to Trot Carnival. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Bushell, thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I shall put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Let's go, councillors, to page 161, 15.3, the Area Park Memorial Hall. The Acting General Manager, Councillor Judd, is vacating the chamber but has a non-pecuniary interest as a member of the board of the Hall, Memorial Hall. I'll go to the Acting General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'd just like to say that I've overlooked the fact that council has a policy of reducing the rate for the Area Park Hall by 100%. I sort of just assumed it was 25% like some of the other organisations, so apologies for that. So the total rates, as you can see on the notice, are $360.06, and the Memorial Hall is asking council to consider donating that amount back.
Thank you very much. I go to Councillor Bushell.
I'd like to move that we donate the $360.06. But just a question as to where we're up with our donation
Donations.
budget.
Thanks, Councillor Bushell. There is a progressive figure, but is that still accurate, the Acting General Manager?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So that was accurate as at the time of preparation of the business paper?
Yep.
So that's right.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Bushell, so it's 3,975 is the total spent so far this year, or committed this year? Sorry.
15, is it?
Sorry, we've got a budget of 15,000.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you, yes. That's a good point. If we might, in future, if we can just add 3,905 out of 15, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Bushell has moved a motion that council donate back 100% of the general rate to the Area Park Memorial Hall Committee. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion, please? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. I'll bring in Councillor Judd. Tell him the bad news. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. Welcome back to the Chamber, Councillor Judd. During your temporary absence, Council have resolved that Council donate 100% of the general rate back to the Area Park Memorial Hall Committee. Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillors, we could go over to page 164, 15.4, event sponsorship request. The Acting General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So a request for the Bikers for Boobs event to waive the fees associated with holding their event on the 8th of October.
Thank you. Another great community event, and also note that all their proceeds go to the Temora branch of Can Assist. I go to Councillor Bushell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that we appease to their request.
Thank you. So Councillor Bushell has moved that Council accede to the request of donating the costs associated with the events as outlined in the business paper. Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Good, thank you. Moved, seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. On the contrary, no. I'll declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillors, there is a late item of correspondence that you should have received in 15.5, Spark at the Park. We always thought there was spark at the park. This is a late item of correspondence that did need to come to this meeting, so it was deemed urgent, and I go to the Acting General Manager. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Judd has declared a non-pecuniary interest and is remaining in the chamber, and I go to the Acting General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So a request from the Airy Park Community Projects Committee to hold their event Spark at the Park on the 9th of September. Just noting that any costs associated with this would be covered under the community events grant funding.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. I'll go to the Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, has moved the recommendation. That is, the council accede to the request. Councillor Bushell, did you wish to second that? Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Councillor Bushell? Oh, sorry. I'll go to Councillor Bushell. I'll go to Councillor Irvine. Further discussion.
So, just to clarify, we've allocated $9,000, I think, out of the budget for the community events for this, and it's in conjunction with the mural unveiling and the time capsule. So it's all on the same. Yep. And so there's no other request for any commitment in funding. It's just advising of the date.
That's right, yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank
Not closing roads or anything like
No.
that.
Thank you. I go to Councillor Bushell.
The only question I did have was probably to Councillor Judd. Sorry, thank you, Mr Mayor. Was just the images. Is there any residential properties within that area? Just so you don't get any complaints regarding lighting.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Councillor Bushell. Councillor Judd.
No, we're mainly using probably the Airy Park Hotel, Airy Park Hall and Airy Park Primary School, the three main buildings.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You happy with that response, Councillor Bushell?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillors, if there's no further discussion, the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Bushell have moved that Council accede to the request, with that clarity that Councillor Irvine raised as well. So if there's no further discussion, we'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very, very much. No further urgent late items of correspondence. Thank you, Madam Acting General Manager.
No, thank you. No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillors, we now proceed over to page 167, and we have received a notice of motion 16.1 in relation to Rural Fire Brigade funding, and we need to keep our blood pressures in check. And I go now to Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to preface this by saying that each of us in the chamber, either we're a member of a bushfire brigade or we have a family member or know somebody who's a member, and I just acknowledge the tremendous work that our volunteers do in risking, protecting life and property in our community and around the state and the nation, and I think they do a tremendous job. But my concern has arisen over the last few years with the increase in the amount that the state government has required us to contribute to the Rural Fire Brigade funding target each year. It seems to be going up, and with our last budget being in deficit, I'm really concerned about the future trajectory of this cost to council, and given our limited lift in income we have to cover this extra cost, every year we seem to battle to trim our budget back and back and back, and there's just very little fat there to trim. And the funding model in the legislation seems to give huge leeway to keep funding this bureaucracy almost unlimited means. And if you've read my paper, and you can see the expression there of how they work out the funding target. The funding target is what they expect to spend this year. They have a budget for this year, and they add on whatever they blew their budget by if they exceeded it 2 years ago. So if their actual expenditure exceeded their estimated expenditure 2 years ago, they add that amount onto this year's current budget, and the local councils have to fund that increased pool. And I feel that there's very little restraint on the expenditure level, and it's just passed on to local councils just to cover it without any say in what amount we get levied at us. And I'm very concerned that local councils don't have the capacity to keep on matching that indefinitely. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLaren, and the Chamber thanks you for the work that you put into this report. And it's a very, very, very important one, and I know that, pardon me, that it's one that either informally or formally is discussed right across the state, but I'm pleased to see this before us because the time is right to start advocating to this end, in my personal view. But ultimately, it's up to Council for you to consider this. Councillor McLaren, would you like to formally move your notice of motion?
I'd like to formally move that way.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren has moved a notice of motion. Seconded, Councillor Good. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Pardon me. Go to Councillor Irvine.
In the review that they're conducting into the aftermath of the floods at Lismore, there's been a suggestion that the Rural Fire Service will take over the admin back office role of the SES as well. So there's a lot of interesting stuff occurring in that space. Resilience New South Wales is being disbanded to some extent. I think a lot of the staff will remain, but they'll have a different name and they'll go back under community service or something that runs under the police. So just something to bear in mind that this beast is getting bigger, RFS/SES. So I think it is probably timely that we just voice our concerns at the ever spiralling costs and, you know, it's all well and good if the state government want to fund it, but if they keep expecting us to fund it, I don't think we can.
No, that's very true. Thank you, Councillor Irvine. I go to the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with Councillor McLaren. Yeah, it's just never ending. Every time, and it is an emotional thing, or you know, there's people lose houses and lives and so forth, and we've got to do our best to, you know, try and stop all that sort of thing. But just keep throwing money at an organisation, it just breeds inefficiencies, I think. You know, I've been involved with Rural Fire Service all my working life, and yeah, the amount of money that's there, that's just at times go to waste. You know, an example of that, our brigade put in for a shed to house one truck, and the quote come back at $110,000, and our brigade knocked that back as a protest, knowing full well the money just went to another brigade somewhere else and they built a shed that didn't, and I was told that, but as a protest we knocked that funding back. But I just find that ridiculous, to, you know, $110,000 for a shed, a tin shed with a concrete floor, and that's all you need, and power. But this they'd have a fully functioning toilet, a kitchenette, a rainwater tank, and all this stuff anyway. It was just ridiculous. So yeah, I'm right behind the motion.
Thanks very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And Councillor McLaren's initial remarks, of course, we all reiterate those and warmly endorse those in relation to our volunteers, and they know how deeply appreciated that they are, whether they're in Temora Shire or beyond. And but we have to do the responsible thing, and that is look at every single dollar that's going out. So, councillors, there is a notice of motion moved by Councillor McLaren, seconded Councillor Good, that Council make urgent representations to the Honourable Steph Cook MP, Minister for Emergency Services, raising concerns about the unsustainable funding model for the Rural Fire Service Brigade funding target in the Rural Fire Service Act 1997 for New South Wales, and the ever-increasing burden on local councils of the cost of rural fire brigade funding. And further, that copies be sent to Riverina Joint Organisation, to REROC, New South Wales Country Mayors Association and LGNSW. So that has been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. And thank you again, Councillor McLaren. Councillors, there's no other items of business with notice. We now proceed to urgent items of business without notice. I go around the chamber to Councillor Bushell. Happy? Thank you. Councillor Good.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. There is one issue that I think is an urgent matter that we need to address. The National Australia Bank in Narendra is a similar bank to the National Australia Bank here. It reduced its hours probably 6 months before Temora reduced its hours. We've just received notice that the National Australia Bank in Narendra is closing for good. And I think we need to make urgent representations with the regional manager or state manager to ensure that we still have our National Australia Bank here and that there's no intention of closing it.
Thank you, Councillor Good. I thank you for that. I do remind Council that we did have meetings with Mr Leddy, the regional manager, and that was, I don't know, what was that, about 3 months ago, and he indicated, of course, with the staffing issues, etc., which they've now evidently settled, but I still see that even our branches closed ad hoc on occasions. So I think, yes, we've got to fight for everything that we have. So, Councillor Good, would you like to move, because I do deem that as an urgent matter. Councillor Good.
Yes, I would like to move that the Mayor and the General Manager contact the Regional Manager of the National Australia Bank to seek assurances that the local branch will not be closing.
Or reduced hours as
Or
well. Yes.
Or have reduced hours.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Good. I'll take that motion. Is there a second for the motion, please? Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Good. Nothing further? No, thank you. Councillor Irvine, business without notice. No, happy. Councillor Judd.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Following on from discussing about Rural Fire Service, I was present recently with the Mayor and Councillor Sinclair at the presentation of emergency service medals to a number of volunteers in our shire. These are volunteers who participated in the 2019-2020 Black Summer bushfires and who went away more than 5 days to Section 44 fires. And it surprised me that, and pleasantly surprised me that, you know, we have volunteers in our community who are willing to go away to represent us. They're going away from an area that we're used to fighting grassland fires or cropland fires, but going into risky areas that they don't know anything about. And I think that's we must commend those volunteers who took on that task. But so congratulations to all those volunteers who got those medals, and yeah, certainly we're very proud of what they did. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Judd, and we all warmly endorse those words that you've just shared with us, and it was an honour, frankly, to be there for yourself, Councillor Judd, and the Deputy Mayor and I, and yeah, it shocked the billy-o out of us just to see how many really and truly did go up and give their time and I suppose effectively putting their lives potentially on the line to help others. And it is special, and that further amplified why we're hosting a reception for them to have a drink with them as a council and as a community to say a warm thank you and well done. So thanks, Councillor Judd. Thank you. I go to Councillor McLaren. Happy? Thank you. Councillor Oliver? Thank you. Councillor Reinhold? No, thank you. The Deputy Mayor? No, thank you. Just a couple of things, councillors. From the Acting General Manager, update on how are our new hours going with Transport for New South Wales office, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. So we probably need to advertise a little bit more. the staff have sort of indicated that they might get a couple of people in before 9, but predominantly people are sort of coming through the doors around 9 o'clock or a bit after. So we might look to putting a couple more articles in the Narrabri News and a few more snap ads in the paper, just to remind people that the facility is open from 8:30 now, especially with harvest sort of not too far away. Generally gets fairly busy then.
No, thank you very, very much. Councillor, just to advise you that I sent off a note today to the NRMA to inquire about where the Temora depot office is up to, and because we've had a few conflicting stories in relation to it. We all read the article in the Temora Independent about it, but the head office seemed to think that they have no intention of closing anything. So we're just trying to seek some formal clarity on what really is going on. So we'll advise council of any updates. Any further urgent business without notice? Councillor Good.
Just a comment to the Director of Finance. I've just done a Google search for service for New South Wales Agency. It says it opens at 9 o'clock on Google, so that's probably why, part of the reason why people aren't coming.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor not Google. Councillor. I beg your pardon, Councillor Good. Thank you very much for that, because that's something we do need to get on to urgently. So, no, we wouldn't do that to him. Thank you, Councillor Good. There being no further urgent business without notice, motion please then receiving the information paper for councillors on page 171. Councillor McLaren. Councillor Good, thank you. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillors, you also would have received your late Road Safety Officer Activity Report for July that also forms part of the information paper. Do councillors have any comments or any questions? I do note, of course, I always enjoy, in the main, looking at the Rangers regulatory report. It just makes me appreciate the Rangers' job more and more and more and more. But I do note that there was something that was missing from his report, and that is we've had goats on the loose at Temora District Hospital from next door that have been attacking mayors and nurses and all sorts of things. And it's, oh, sorry, it is there on the bottom of page 177. But at any rate, I commend the Ranger, because finally we're getting some action there in relation to the fence between the hospital and the owner of the goats, and there's 3 of them, and they could be deemed as dangerous. The Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Mayor, I had that noted here, and I just wondered whether that didn't coincide with the last meeting of the LHAC meeting up there.
I thought you were going to say the Masonic Lodge, but thank you for that. No. Any further comments? Councillor McLaren, information paper.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the Imagine minutes, it talks about Ruth Fritsch organising the student concert, and I just am astounded by her enthusiasm to keep going organising this with the passion for music she has and students. I think it's to be commended.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McLaren. Here, it's fantastic, and of course, Council honoured Mrs. Fritsch several years ago now with the Merrill Citation, which was a very special occasion. But obviously, she's still continuing to serve our community in many and varied ways. So, thank you, Councillor McLaren. Councillor Irvine.
Just a couple of questions in relation to the building approvals to the Acting Director Environmental.
So page 175.
75.
Thank you.
A couple of subdivisions. The 2 to 4 Coolman Street, is that Coolman Street Area Park?
Yeah. The Acting Director.
Yes, that's correct.
Yep. And just further, the Millvale Road consolidation of those two lots. Whereabouts are they, do you know? Is
Thank
that to do with Highfields?
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. We go to the Acting Director of Environmental Services.
I'll just
Take it on notice.
I'll just have to take that one on notice, Councillor Irvine.
No, that's fine. And just to follow on, I think the 10 Airport Street subdivision one would be a relative to the ruling council made recently to reduce the minimum lot size on that that area in Airport Street. And have you got information on the developers at the bottom entry there at the commercial warehouse and office and showroom at Area Park?
I go to the Acting Environmental Services Director.
I'll follow up with a detailed email to you, Councillor Irvine.
Thank you.
Well, that'll be to everybody, Madam Director.
Yes.
Thank you. Further comments in relation to the information paper? Councillor Irvine?
The ranger's got listed here one illegal building activity. I don't suppose we'd be. Has anyone got any information in relation to that? It's
We
on
can
the
take
same
that.
page as the goat stuff, but if we could have some information in relation to what that might be, please.
We can take that on notice.
Yes, I'll include that in the email to councillors.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Irvine, and thank you, Madam Acting Director. There's no further items from the information paper. Councillor Irvine.
Just one more, the Director of Administration and Finance. The rates arrears always look pretty good. Have we got any really long-term issues there, or is it pretty well?
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. We go to the Acting General Manager.
They're pretty good. We've got very good ratepayers overall. A couple of years ago, I think we had a sale for unpaid rates. So once people have 5 years or more of rates outstanding, we can offer them up for sale, the properties. And we have engaged the services of debt collectors, which has been a fair bit of a game changer for us. They do some really good work for us. So no exposure, no significant exposure to just one ratepayer, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's a few problematic ones, but we sort of chip away at it, and we've probably got one of the best outstanding ratios in the state. Actually, it's excellent.
Thank you. And you're quite right, Madam Acting General Manager. We do, and even during some tougher times, our community seem to continue to step up, which we're so grateful for. There being no further comments in relation to the information paper, in accordance with section 10A of the Local Government Act 1993, I advise that there are several matters that are deemed confidential, and accordingly I require a motion to have those matters considered, please. Councillor McLaren, Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. In closed session. Thank you. We resume into open council, and we now proceed to the resolutions that council have passed in closed confidential session. On the motion of Councillor McLaren, Councillor Oliver, council resolved to move into confidential at 5:36 p.m. The motion was carried. Councillor Good declared a pecuniary interest in relation to item REP 22-931 due to being the solicitor for deferred for the Dustin Rose estate. Councillor Good left the meeting at 5:39 p.m. and took no further part in the discussion. Minutes of the Assets and Operations Committee held on the 9th of August 2022 on the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Good. It was resolved that the reports be received. The motion was carried. On the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Oliver, it was resolved that the reports and recommendations as presented be adopted, and the motion was carried. Councillor Good returned to the meeting at 5:46 p.m. General Manager's Performance Review Panel meeting. On the motion of Councillor Bushell and Councillor Good, it was resolved that Council endorse the decision by the General Manager's Performance Review Panel in selecting Blackadder and Associates for the recruitment of a new General Manager for Temora Shire Council, and further that Council write to those who submitted an expression of interest advising of Council's decision, and the motion was carried. Just on that, councillors and listeners, that I have asked the General Manager to, being that this motion will be released tomorrow to the public, that he consider making an announcement about his retirement plans, just because the media will obviously be ringing as soon as they see this. So, Councillor McLaren declared a pecuniary interest in relation to item REP 22-905 as she submitted an expression of interest. Councillor McLaren left the meeting at 5:56 and took no further part in the discussion. Expression of interest, second-hand concrete box culverts. On the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, and seconded Councillor Reinhold, it was resolved that Council accept the expression of interest submissions as received with the clarification of one submission, and that motion was carried. Councillor McLaren returned to the chamber at 5:57 p.m. Aerodrome correspondence. On the motion of Councillor McLaren and Councillor Judd, it was resolved that Council accede to the request with a deed of release executed as requested, and the motion was carried. Was it supposed to have without prejudice? In correspondence. In correspondence, okay. The Junee Road, beg your pardon, Apollo Place Workshop. On the motion of Councillor Bushell and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, it was resolved that Council conduct a further expression of interest process seeking clear details from applicants about their offer of support to Council in the delivery of affordable housing at Apollo Place, and the motion was carried. Junee Road Caravan Park. On the motion of Councillor Irvine and Councillor Reinhold, it was resolved that Council advertise for the temporary position of Junee Road Caravan Park caretaker for cleaning and booking duties, and the motion was carried. Councillor Irvine declared a pecuniary interest in relation to item REP 22-957 due to being the business owner. Councillor Irvine left the meeting at 6:29 p.m. and took no further part in the discussion. Councillor Bushell declared a pecuniary interest in relation to item REP 22-957 due to being a former employee. Councillor Bushell left the meeting at 6:32 p.m. and took no further part in the discussion. Signage projects. On the motion of Councillor Judd and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, it was resolved that Council acknowledge that the contractor has indicated that the signage works will be completed by the 30th of September 2022 per correspondence received, and the motion was carried. Councillor Irvine and Councillor Bushell both returned to the meeting at 6:36 p.m. On the motion of Councillor Reinhold and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, it was resolved that Council moves the motions from closed business into open council, and that motion was carried. On the motion of Councillor Judd and Councillor Good, it was resolved that Council moves out of closed council and into open council at 6:55 p.m. And that motion was also carried. So, councillors, could I please have a motion to adopt all of those resolutions, please? Thank you. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, any further urgent business? If not, I do thank you so very, very much for your attendance, and I declare the meeting closed.